So we move on to day 3 of Royal Ascot, with the feature being the Gold Cup today. Is it Ladies' Day?
Ladies' Day today,
Shouldn't know that, yeah. And another Timeform expert alongside me to run through the card, and it's the turn of Jamie Lynch.
Chief Correspondent.
Sorry.
Timeform. Please.
Timeform's Chief Correspondent, Jamie
title.
Lynch, yeah.
Never in the history of professional titles has there been a more phony baloney moniker than Chief Correspondent. It's basically the messy role in that you've got the creativity, you've got no responsibility. I haven't quite got the talent of Messi, not quite, but it's the same sort of freedom in that just go and write what you want, say what you want, do what you want, and put a big Timeform banner above. So let's have a look at what's happening today.
So the Coutinho role, is that the not quite Messi sort of Philip Coutinho sort of level?
We're still looking a long way down the leagues to find my natural better fit, rather than either Coutinho or Messi was starting too high there.
Some decent players at Hartlepool United these days.
Well, yeah, hopefully we'll the Vanarama conference will be ours for the taking, hopefully.
Well, there's a big pre-season game against my team, Wigan.
There is?
Yeah, in July, August. So yeah.
Are we cutting it up?
Might have to, yeah.
Well, we when we did the Facebook Live general chat last Thursday, we talked about the divide within the divide, the north-south divide, but also that you are west side and I am east side massive.
Which one was LEG west side? Or
I think he was west side.
Oh, I'll take that one then. Yeah.
But the first race today, it's an unusual race in that it's the Norfolk Stakes, 2-year-old race. You expect the Wes Wards, the Aidan O'Briens, the Newmarket Yards, but this has a really strong contingent from the north, and it includes one of my bets of the day, my next best. Now, obviously, Royal Ascot, the next best, is a little bit more far-reaching than at Cheltenham's where we're dealing 6-4. That'll do. 11-8, lovely. So we'll talk about the challenge here, and what makes this race intriguing is that we've got a Wes Ward horse who's been beaten. Actually, he ran twice. Has McHerron. Won the first time, beaten the second time at Churchill, went really fast, was only beaten a neck and a nose, but it's unusual, isn't it, for these Wes Ward horses to be coming in on the back of a defeat, and more unusual this week in that Wes Ward has hit the target with his 3-year-olds rather than the 2-year-olds. Were you a wow moment with Lady Aurelia the day for you?
It was just staggering, wasn't it, really? I mean, 135, it's come out the Timeform rating for her. Where does that rank in terms of, like, I've seen a few people say things like, well, how have we come to that sort of figure? When you've got fillies and mares like Found that are winning the Arc, how does Lady Aurelia's performance compare?
Well, obviously different disciplines in terms of the different trips involved, but it's the same scale, whether it's 2.5 mile like today's Gold Cup or 5 furlongs like the Norfolk that kicks off today. It's the same Timeform scale, and this is based on years and years and decades of statistics and of calculations of what a normal winner of such a race looks like. So we can see that with the King's Stand on Tuesday, a normal winner runs to mid 120s, 125, 126, something like that, to win that race. So it's abnormal, as we all saw, for her to win and stretch the field out as she did, for her to win as a 3-year-old and beat the older sprinters as she did, and for her to power clear at the end. So the distances involved, who she beat is crucial in terms of, we know that that's a solid collection of horses who are Group 1 sprinters who are at the top of the game. So we can be very confident with the distances involved and the historical context of what it normally takes to win, finish second, finish third in such a race, that filly is out of the ordinary. 135 puts her way ahead of the pack. And in historical terms, there's only a handful of fillies who've even surpassed that. Black Caviar, I think, is one.
Yeah.
From recent times, obviously she was super special. We saw her from Australia. But in whatever the discipline, whatever the divisions, it's very rare for a filly to break that 130 barrier. So Lady Aurelia, as you all saw, is doing spectacular things, and it's backed up by the clock, backed up by the historical standards, backed up by that collection of horses that she was up against. So all the data, Nick, says that 135 is justified. It might even be conservative given the way that she's doing it. But we said last week, didn't she, that she's either going to do something spectacular or blow out and wash out completely, and it turned out to be the former, and it was great to see. And we're in that boat later on with Order of St George, aren't we? He's in that sort of black or white issue. What's he going to do? Is he going to do something spectacular, or is he going to be the Order of St George, who's been beaten 4 times since last year's Gold Cup. So he's a Jekyll and Hyde character. But Lady Aurelia was spectacular. In terms of ratings, that performance won't be beaten for the rest of this week. Back to the Norfolk. Back to the Norfolk. So we've got McHerron, who was beaten last time, who looks funny. Aidan O'Brien's only horse is this So Nation, who's had 4 goals already. We sort of know that one's limits. And it looks like a bit of a free-for-all, this Norfolk, and certainly the northern contingent is really strong. We've got Havana Grey from the west side, who won the National Stakes.
West side, yeah.
Who won the National Stakes, and obviously that was a race that had Sound and Silence back and forth, who won the Windsor Castle on the first day. We've got Santry, who won the Division of the Brocklesby for Declan Carroll. 2 from 2, really impressive at York. Last time when he beat horses who've come out and won since, like Consequences, and then like this It Don't Come Easy. And this is the one that I've sort of landed on, because we're looking at the Timeform ratings, we're looking at what it normally takes to win the Norfolk, and we're looking at the market. And when you sort of have an idea in your mind of what the line should look like between those. So what's happened here is that we've got It Don't Come Easy, who's top of the Timeform ratings. We've got all the data around that about the time, which we'll come to, and that's really positive as well. So the others aren't up to his standard as yet, or sort of he's nowhere below that standard. And the market just underestimates what he did, I think, both at York in terms of when he needed it, and more so at Musselburgh when he broke a track record that had been standing for 20
years,
at least 20 years. Yeah, 1994 it was. So what happened at Musselburgh is that It Don't Come Easy and Rebel Assault, quick and clear, 10 lengths clear of the field, and whenever you get such a scenario where you get such a wide margin in a 2-year-old race, you rely on the time to give you a clue of to what's gone on. And the time is significant because it says that actually these two aren't just better than the rest, these are out of the ordinary. Rebel Assault went to Beverley a week later, 2-5 for the Hillary Needler, and blotted a copybook there. But the suspicion is that she'd been through the mill. She'd been put through the mill more to the point by It Don't Come Easy, and therefore that sort of drained her powers only a week on. So I think we can forgive that. But It Don't Come Easy, he's got the best form according to Timeform. He's got the best time figure according to Timeform. He's not that sexy because we've got the O'Briens and the Weswards in here, but I think that he's flying the flag for the North, and Richard Fahey is already off the board at Royal Ascot for the week with Ribchester. So it's just one of those, Nick, where you can't say it's going to win. You can't even say it's going to be in the first 3 because of the nature of this 2-year-old race where they're all sort of developing as we speak. But on all the data so far, this horse is a bigger price than he should be. And that's sort of what we're boiling down to, especially with these 2-year-old races, that actually you look at him and all the data and it suggests that he should be more like 5 or 6 to 1 to win this, and you can get him at 9 or 10 to 1.
Yeah.
So that's why I think that it's just that marriage of the form, the time, and the marker. And in the context of the marker, this horse seems a bit skewed.
Okay, so It Don't Come Easy in the first 2. Yeah. Unfortunately, is carrying the burden of being my selection in the office tipping competition, so apologies about that.
We've got 2 of us hanging off from the neck again, that'll slow them down.
So on to the second race, which I know was the Tercentenary Stakes, but it's called the Hampton Court
Stakes. Know that.
Yeah, but I sat there yesterday looking at the form like, what the heck is this? And it took me ages and ages to work out that it was the Tercentenary Stakes. This traditionally is one for the Epsom horses, if I remember correctly, and we've got Ben Battle here at favourite 9-2, was 5th in the Derby, if I remember correctly. What's the sort of angle on this race?
Well, that's the primary angle, isn't it? This is the first test of the Derby form, and the Derby is obviously the end game in terms of these horses who are aiming there, but it's also the central point of the season, and the form lines that radiate from that tell us how good a Derby it was. We suspect it was an average Derby, no better, no worse, but Ben Battle was 5th. That was the longest trip he faced, 1.5 miles, but he's always given the impression that he's more about speed than stamina. And even though he was as closest at the finish, he was just ridden with an eye to the trip, and I think he'd be more comfortable back at this distance. And that Derby 5th is the best form on offer in here. But we've got the King Edward on Friday, and history tells us that when horses have a hard race in the Derby, they find it hard to reproduce that just 2 or 3 weeks on at Royal Ascot. And that's the problem with Ben Battle, because think about it, Nick, he didn't race at all as a 2-year-old. He started with a bang at Doncaster, and then he went Craven, Dante, Derby. So this has been a really intense start to his career. And the combination of the hard work he's put in at a relatively early stage, in conjunction with the record of Derby horses coming to Royal Ascot, just means that, well, he is the best in terms of form achieved, he is Timeform top rated, but is he going to reproduce that rating? Is he going to be able to reproduce that rating? Because there are other horses coming in here who are fresher and hungrier than Ben Battle, particularly Mirage Dancer. And we've had a lot of sort of sniping about everyone loves Frankel the sire and that he hasn't really turned up as yet. No classic winners in Europe, no Royal Ascot winner as yet, a few disappointments so far this season, and that question of can he translate the 2-year-old potential into 3-year-old achievement. But this is the start of Frankel Day. This is Frankel's big day in terms of mainline horses who've got a real chance at winning this, and Mirage Dancer is a horse to concentrate on here, isn't he? Because he was fourth behind Cliffs of Moher, the Derby runner-up in the D Stakes, and I suppose the temptation was, given how well he shaped there, was to have a crack at the Derby, given that he looked like a horse who was capable of running in that class. But typical Sir Michael Stoute, he's just sort of eased back, plotted a different path, freshened him up, and he comes in here with certainly the most potential. Just 2 runs, Frankel out of Heat Haze, who was a Group 1 winner over in America, and it all lines up that he's going to run a lot better than he ever has before. So Mirage Dancer is an obvious starting point and an obvious way for the Frankel Day to kick it off, because we have got big other Frankel horses that we'll talk about. But in terms of just, again, the market and in terms of form achieved, the bottom horse here is called Tam Leek, and that was 4th at Chester in the Chester Vase. Second was Wings of Eagles, who obviously won the Derby, and this fellow was just a length behind, and this fellow actually travelled best in that Chester Vase, and it seemed like an extended 12 just stretched him at that stage of his career. But I think that he's really interested coming back to a 1.25 miles, because that's the beauty of this race, and it's that intermediate trip between the 1 mile and the 1.5 miles, and we're getting horses who are coming back and horses who are going up. So Tam Leek, again, in terms of form, in terms of potential, in terms of profile, just 3 runs, I think that he's the one who's the odd one out in terms of price. Godolphin had a good day on Tuesday. Said Ben Sarua hasn't yet come to the party in terms of waving the flag for those. But I think that Tam Leek he's the one I'm sort of thinking that is the overpriced one, looking at all the various factors involved.
Yeah, I seem to remember he stuck on gamely on the far rail, didn't he, in the Chester Vase? Where they came down the middle of the track.
But before then, he'd travelled like the best horse under Jim Crowley.
Very much
interesting that he's kept that association, and interesting that Saib Bin Suru was sort of feels that by dropping him back in trip. So I think he's probably one of the most interesting horse in here for me, looking at the prices. We've got Aiden's horse, Order of the Garter, by the way. One of those horses who's going more from 1 mile to 1.25 miles, because even though he tackled this distance in the French Derby, it didn't show him to full effect, finishing 6th, and he met some trouble, and he didn't really flex his stamina muscles. But what we've learned from Royal Ascot so far is how good the French are, and that their 3-year-olds in particular are at least as good and possibly better than what we've got. And this fella was 5th in the French Guineas behind Bramato and Le Brivado, who won yesterday's Jersey, obviously.
Brivado.
That was really good as well. So Order of the Garter has run in that French pool where it looks really strong this year, and he wasn't seeing the full effect. So I think the Order of the Garter might start favourite. We've had a few Aidan O'Brien snowballs in terms of the gambles in the last couple of days, and this is one who I'm just smelling like a horse who's going to go favourite and have momentum behind him. But at the prices, I'm drawn to Tam Leek. But there's a really exciting race for various reasons. Derby form, Frankel horses who are developing at the right time, Mirage Dancer, usual suspects like Aidan O'Brien, a strong contender in Order of the Garter. But I'm just drawn to Tam Leek because he's got that right mix for the race.
Okay, Tam Leek in the second race, and we move on to the Ribblesdale Stakes, and I've got a strong suspicion of which horse you might be siding with here, because we've got a Frankel filly in the form of Maury.
Part 2 of the Frankel story today, and I think that more than any of the previous day at Royal Ascot, or any previous day of the season, we are starting to see the effect of Frankel, and this is sort of D-Day for him, I'm thinking, because one of these needs to win really to sort of start the next phase, the next chapter of his development. And Maury does look the right horse to put him on the next rung of the ladder in terms of a sire. Unusual for Sir Michael Stoute. We talked about Mirage Dancer and the sort of patient approach that Sir Michael Stoute takes, and that's certainly the case. But Maury had 3 runs within a month, which is unusual, but she didn't race at all last year, and I think the impression was that Sir Michael Stoute always knew that she'd be playing in this company. It was just a matter of sort of taking a university course in 1 year rather than 3 years. So she's had 3 runs in quick succession. But she was. Did you watch her at Goodwood?
I did, yeah. I've seen her on all 3. I remember her really needing it on debut, and then she seems to just be getting better and better with each run.
And last time at Goodwood, it was one of those where I think it was still in the balance of furlong out, and she's ended up winning really well. That was 1.25 miles, now to 1.5 miles. Skipped the Oaks because it just might have blown her mind, that engagement at that stage. But I think that more or less from March, February even, Sir Michael Stoute had Ribblesdale penciled next to Maury. You know what I mean? He's just been working backwards from this point, and she's coming in the perfect way with the perfect profile so far. Beaten on her debut, went very green, but improving all the time since. And one of the clues you look for in races like this are the pedigrees. Which horses are going to shine now they get the chance over 1.5 miles? And when you buy Frankel, the highest ever rated racehorse with Timeform, out of midday, multiple Group 1 winner for Sir Henry Cecil, then obviously we are dealing with something out of the ordinary. So I really hope that Maury's able to win this for her, for Sir Michael Stoute, for midday, but mainly for Frankel.
Okay, so a very convincing vote for Maury in the Ribblesdale Stakes.
The only reason why she's not one of my best bets is because of, all these factors are well accounted for in the price, and it's hard to say that she's a good bet given that this is still a strong race, but sort of fingers crossed for Maury.
So into the Gold Cup, the big race of the day, and a real conundrum I think for punters this, because we've got last year's winner in Order St George, a horse capable of finishing 3rd in the Arc, a really top-notch horse on his day, but also a horse that's capable of getting turned over at odds-on favouritism, and he's also up against some serious horses as well,
and some new horses in terms of the challenge he's got to face. He's only faced Simple Verse once. She finished ahead of him in the Long Distance Cup. He's never faced Big Orange so far. He's obviously old friends with Sheikh Zayed Road, but what's really fascinating about this race, and this is probably why it's the most compelling race of the week and the most significant Gold Cup for a long time, is that there is a bottom line with this race, and that is that if Order of St George reproduces what he did last year in the race, then it's game over. Nothing in here has got his blend of speed and stamina and class, which means that he could win the Gold Cup for the next 4 years. He could do a Yates if he was in the right zone in terms of his mindset, but it is his mindset. And to think that he's been beaten 4 times since the Gold Cup last year, 3 times at odds on, and I was just trying to sort of rationalise why is it that he's not winning races that he should. And when you think about the makeup of those races, particularly the Irish St Leger, when he has to chase something down, Wicklow Brave in the Irish St Leger, other horses in the Long Distance Cup, Torcedor even on his reappearance, that's when the computer just starts to sort of, when you want to reboot it at work and you're throwing your mouse around and saying, what's wrong with this? There just seems to be a slight glitch in his makeup when he's got to go and chase something. And the last horse you want to be chasing is Big Orange, isn't it?
Because he never stops.
He never ever stops. He's so aggressive, he's so hungry, and he looked as good as ever and as hungry as ever at Sandown. So think about it from Order of St George's perspective, because you've all got this conundrum and this choice to make at home, whether you trust that he's going to bring his A game or whether you think he'll have a wobble and there's something else there. But think about Order of St George. He's going to have his mettle tested by Big Orange for sure, the attitude. He's going to have his stamina tested by Sheikh Zayed Road, as he did in this race last year, and he's going to have his finishing speed tested by Simple Verse, who's going up in trip and has got a real classy middle distance background. So there are various, whatever his glitch is, Order of St George, and there clearly is some flaw in his makeup for him not to have won races where he was expected to just be a procession. It's going to be tested in whichever it is. It's going to be dug out. It's going to be exposed, and that's why I'm just thinking at the prices, I'd rather have a go at him. I think this is an opportunity to have back something at a big price rather than trusting to get the job done. I just think that you can play it any way you want, but I really like Big Orange. I think his time's come to have a crack at the Gold Cup. It's remarkable to think that A, he's never gone up against Order of St George, and B, that he's never gone a yard beyond 2 miles, because you'd think that with his stamina in his pedigree, this is what he needs to do. So I'm thinking, I can just see Big Orange sort of slipping away on that home turn, playing Catch Me If You Can, Order of St George looming up, and then Big Orange sort of saying, all right, I think you're a Gold Cup winner here, try and get past me. So that's what I'm sort of envisaging how the race might play out. And obviously, the sooner Order of St George engages Big Orange, the more that Sheikh Zayed Road and Simple Verse come into it, because, you can see them letting that battle happen and then try to pounce in the finish. So this is a fascinating Gold Cup. It would be, in one way, it'd be great if Order of St George won, because he could easily do a Yates and command this race for years to come. But with his vulnerabilities that are clear, whatever the glitch is, it's going to be tested to the full by one or several of these. So it's an exciting Gold Cup for once, and I think that my loyalty for today only lies with Big Orange.
Is he an each way steal then at 8-1? I'm surprised how big some of these horses are, like Sheikh Zayed Road 12-1. I mean,
that's the thing, isn't it, with this market? In the Order of St George, his price reflects all of his class and none of his quirks, I think. And that means that the other's a big price. There's a case for saying that you could have sort of a several pronged attack and sort of have all of them on your side, because back in Simple Verse, Big Orange, even Sheikh Zayed Road still amounts to a bigger price couple than it does back in Order of St George. So it's backing the many rather than the one. Sounds like some sort of Labour politician there.
I'm just thinking Jeremy Corbyn.
But personally, I'd go for Big Orange. I think the Order of St George is vulnerable for the reasons, but this is one of those things where sort of anything could happen in the Gold Cup. The market, with an even money favourite, there's normally more definitive angles in, but I think there's a few things going on with this.
Okay, so one for the many and not for the few. On to the penultimate race of the day, and quite an easy one, this. The Britannia Stakes. Closest thing to a cavalry charge I think we'll have all week. And I must say the favourite at the moment, Son of the Stars, baffles me that this one can be called that and be by delegator.
Oh yes, I was thinking that.
Absolutely baffles
me.
It's
such the Galileo Gold about this, isn't it?
Yeah.
Son of the Stars clearly should be by See the Stars,
yeah.
And yet he's by delegator, yeah. This isn't the first.
Should be punishable crime, that.
That's got a really good chance, that's Son of the Stars. I was just talking to our mile handicapper, and I said, why did I get beat off Ronald Arden at Newmarket? And he said, well, there's various reasons. It didn't quite handle the lip so well. It was probably in front soon enough, and he looked the greener of the pair, or the more green of the pair. So that's why he's Timeform top rated. But I mean, we're not going to go through this race in detail, because you could make a really good case for 20 of these. Absolutely. But we're just going to sort of land on a point. And we're back to that issue of looking at the form lines, and then putting in the context of this market. And it's actually Richard Hannon's other horse, who's called the Great Escape, number 24 on the card. And he's in the top 5 on Timeform ratings. You look at his form, we're going to talk about Atty Purse in the last race, but this horse ran really well behind that. Leader's Legacy was second to that at Haydock without things going his way. Leader's Legacy is one of the market leaders in this race, isn't it, as well?
Yeah.
And so there's various approaches to sort of looking at races with an eye to betting, but the best way, and the one that I think most of us employ here at Timeform, is to go through the race, sort of have an idea in your mind of what market and what prices you put in, and then sort of see where the discrepancies lie. And when I was looking at the betting for this, for the Great Escape, because I thought, well, his form ties in with a few, he's not far behind X and Y, he's had just 4 runs, he has got a good profile for the Britannia. And I was scrolling down and thinking, and then I got a 25-1. I thought, it must be a runner, is it? Is he worried about the fast ground? He's got form on fast ground. Scroll down, and what price is it? 40s. So with that in mind, I just thought, well, I've got to have a few quid on this. And actually, you've sort of got to recommend to people that this horse has got as good a chance as almost any in here. It's a ridiculously competitive race, but by the same token, that his form involving Atty Percy, Leader's Legacy, his run style, his profile means that he's got a really good chance here, and he's certainly not a 40-1 chance. So the Grape Escape, it's one back to that point of looking at the form in the context of the market, and this tells me that that's the wrong price.
So the Grape Escape to bear fruits and be Britannia.
Can I get someone new to do this next festival?
I stumbled. I got so excited about my pun there I couldn't even say it properly. Right, one more to go, and another tricky one in the King George of Fifth.
No, it's not tricky, this.
Yeah, well, I know your nap's
nap,
which I'm going to set you off with, but before
Nappage.
the nap comes out, there's also another one in here called Master Singer that won by 16 lengths last night.
Yeah.
Which is so... What is it about Atty Purse that makes him such a compelling bet in this?
Well, Master Singer is one of those where it's Timeform top rated, and that's because you've got to take some interpretation of what he achieved. He won by 16 lengths at Newcastle. Now, what he beat that day, you and I could have got into a pantomime horse costume and probably won that because they were so limited. But we wouldn't have won by 16 lengths. And
50.
My half brother's not campanologist either, we're not trained by John Gosden. But what happened here is that we obviously take a view of the form, and then this is his handicap debut, Master Singer, and the BHA assessor has gone for 96, and we've gone for higher than that, based on not just what he did at Newcastle and the calculations, but on how he was shaping up before then. And this horse had a King Edward the 7th entry. He could have run in the Group 2 tomorrow, but John Gosden must feel as well, 96, and that sort of let us in lightly. So this is one instance where we took a view of the form. The BHA it's different, and that's where we get the top ratings and the bottom ratings from, because when the official assessor differs in terms of opinion from our assessment, then that's where the biggest discrepancies are, and we get the Timeform top rated from that. So Master Singer is top rated, and you can't put anyone off. It's just that this Atty Purse is so compelling for various reasons. Frankel, we're back to the Frankel again, and obviously this horse was being talked about as a potential Derby contender after he won at Sandown, where he did remarkably well to get up. Then he went to Haydock, and rather like the horse I like in the Britannia,
the Grape Escape.
I'm just putting you on the spot there to see if you'd stumble again, you need a run up at that. But Atty Purse went to Haydock at even money, and I'm sure that if William Buick could have had that ride again, he'd love to, because it was a slow pace, he was last of all, and he just got going too late. The race didn't test the horse at all in terms of stamina or ability, and that's why he finished second. But it means that he's 5-1.
6 is here on,
because if he'd have won at Haydock, even impressively, we'd be talking about 11-4 favourite, and he'd have a mark more like 100 rather than 93. So it is a blessing in disguise in that he still comes in under the radar. He's drawn 22 of 22, which might sound like brutal on the face of it, but this horse is going to be buried away and pick away through under Kieran Schumacher. Big day for him. First time cheap pieces as well. So it's just a simple case, Nick, of a horse who I think we often say group horse in a handicap, don't we? But this is an archetypal case in point. This horse is definitely going to be running in group races by the end of the season, and a mark of 93, I think that he can pick his way through and show his class this day. So we've got Maury, we've got Mirage Dancer, we've got Atty Purse, who combine the Frankel treble. That'd be a good treble today, wouldn't it, if you're a real believer like I am? Our Frankel wall over in the corner of the office. But I think that Atty Purse is the best chance for Frankel, the best bet in the race, and the best bet on the day.
You know what's going to happen, don't you? Your first two legs of your Frankel treble are going to land, and then you're going to get done. You're going to get Aidan O'Brien, and Majoris is going to host.
Yeah,
he's going to do him on the line. Yeah.
Imagine if Majoris wins for Frankel Mark II.
And you'll be there like in front of the cameras, and you have to pretend like you're delighted.
Oh yeah, the painted grin on. But that's what I like Atty Purse. I think that this horse just sort of really stands out in terms of handicapping, even though Master Singer, because you compare the races that Master Singer's running against Atty Purse, and they are chalk and cheese. So compelling days racing. I love the Gold Cup this year because of that sort of black and white issue around a black and white horse in the Jekyll and Hyde Order of St George and the new challenges that he faces. I love the Frankel angle and this Frankel treble, and I think this might be take-off day for Frankel as a stallion. But in terms of my three bets for today, it don't come easy in the first race, the Norfolk Stakes. Overpriced, given the time and the form achieved at Musselburgh. I really like the Grape Escape, just from a price thing. I mean, there's no way this horse should be 40-1, given the strength of his form and the way he's been shaping up. That's in the Britannia at 5 o'clock.
As well.
Yeah, 40-1. I mean, that is just a daft price. And then finally, Atty Purse. All the eggs in one basket, all the Frankel eggs in one basket with him. I think that even though he's favourite, at the off, Nick, I wouldn't be surprised if this was more like 3-1, because he just ticks so many boxes for me. So that's my interpretation and appreciation of Ladies' Day, which we're going to spend with a tea lady, bringing the tea round. That's as close as we get to Ladies' Day here at Timeform Towers.
Right, well, thank you very much, and as always, I'm going to ask you to look busy while I run round and turn.
All right, okay, yeah.
That's half a dab.